apparently, Republican lawmakers are at odds with their own voters when it comes to the culture wars on the LGBTQ community. And that's according to a new survey that was done by Data for Progress. Here's what they found. Let's take a look at this graph, which will give you a sense of where American voters stand. It's broken up by political ideology, and it shows that 72% of Democrats, 72% of Democrats, 65% of independents, and 55% of Republican voters think that there is too much legislation aimed at limiting the rights of transgender and gay people in America. Voters are also seeing through Republicans' idea of so-called woke identities. So the poll also found that 57% of likely voters overall agree that transgender identities occur naturally when free societies permit individuals to identify outside of societal norms, whereas only 33% view transgender identities as a woke invention. So I want to go back to the first part of this poll was, because I was actually a little surprised to see that 55% of Republican voters are like, yeah, this is just culture war nonsense and it's unnecessary. Because it seems like they love it if you watch corporate mainstream media, but it turns out, no, Republican voters are just like everyone else. They see the culture war as a big distraction. They also want lawmakers to improve their quality of life and their material conditions. But there really aren't many politicians who are willing to do that. So in lieu of political representation that benefits and improves their lives, they just go along with the right wingers who own the libs. That's the way I read this. I'm curious what you think.
I can't say that I'm that shocked by it, in the sense that even if you are some rabid right winger foaming at the mouth and wanting to, hurt and be, cruel to trans people, in real life they don't interact with trans people. At their school, there are no trans kids. This is a very small segment of the population. This is not the same as vaccines and COVID shutdowns, where everybody can't send their kid to school, where everybody can't go to the mall or a bar or a restaurant. Like this is just not something that's occurring in their lives. It's just not, and you just see the amount of oxygen that this stuff gets on TV and from their politicians as compared to what they're actually interfacing with every single day. I'm not surprised that people can see that this seems like it's theater. Like they don't see it out in their lives. So that's why I think they can see this clearly and just like, this is crap.
No, absolutely. And look, obviously the percentages of people seeing this as a culture war issue that's like unnecessary changes significantly from Democrats to Republicans. So with Democrats, it's 72% of them say that the amount of anti-LGBTQ legislation is excessive. The number goes down to 55% for Republicans, but it's still a majority of Republican voters who feel this way, which is, I think, good news. Especially with the way that the right wing is kind of painted in left-wing corporate media. I'm thinking about MSNBC, let's just keep it real. But to your point, Waz, yeah, it is taking up a lot of the energy, both in newscasts and also with what Republican lawmakers on a state level are up to. For instance, there have been nearly 430 separate bills that have moved or are moving through the state legislature this year pertaining to restricting or limiting the rights of LGBTQ individuals. At least 10 states have banned gender affirming care for minors, and another 21 have introduced bills. 19 states have also banned transgender students from participating in school sports matching their gender identity. 16 states have offered bills that would restrict or ban drag performances in public spaces. And if the calculation here is that the Republican candidates in future elections will do well by running on these issues, I think the midterms will show you not necessarily. So just a quick refresher, the 2022 midterms really delved into these issues heavily. Republicans in midterm races are embracing anti-trans rhetoric like never before. And that is a headline on November 3rd of 2022. But it seems to have backfired to some extent. Let's go to graphic 5, analysis. Voters repudiate attacks on trans youth in midterms. And survey showed midterm voters cared strongly about abortion access and trans rights while disapproving of Trump brand election denialism, as younger people and independents broke for Democrats despite widespread disapproval of President Joe Biden and concern about the economy and high inflation. So final word on this, I'll give to you, Waz. What do you think really happened there? Do you think that the anti-trans rhetoric and policy coming from Republicans really did persuade young voters who otherwise hate Joe Biden and the Democratic Party to vote, to get active?
No, I think it's the contempt for right-wing voters by right-wing politicians that have kind of doomed them here. Like, you can have the first part, but you have to translate it into something that actually affects these folks' lives. Like, for instance, the affirmative action thing, right? Like, where you can say to voters of all races, by the way, who aren't black specifically, like, yo, these left wingers, they're so crazy. They want to help the black people at all costs, even at the expense of you, person who wants their kid to go to a good college. So many Americans on both sides of the spectrum are trying to get their kids into college. So you can make that connection. Like like, all right, we're willing to follow you. And then, okay, yeah, this is somehow screwing me on the other end. I understand that. With the trans thing, it's like, there's no trans kids at my kid's school. I don't have any trans parents in my neighborhood. I don't see trans stuff ever. And all these people ever want to do is talk about trans stuff. All right, cool, but when does it actually start to affect my own life? And I think it's that miscalculation. Like, these people have a very high level of contempt for their voting base. And it shows with stuff like this trans stuff that doesn't compute and doesn't translate. People are not that stupid, even right wingers, guys.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think you're right about that.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, I really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.